and welcome to the Public Sector I Heart You podcast. I am Michelle O'Neill, Principal Consultant for all things leadership and organisational development, and today I am very pleased to be joined by Jo Grocott from the City of Wolverhampton Council. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, so before we get into things, share with us. We talk all the time. This is really weird for us not to be behind Teams cameras. We've got microphones instead, so this is really weird. We know each other, but share with us a little bit about you and the council that you work for.
So I'm Head of People Development and Experience at the City of Wolverhampton Council. I've been at the council for about 10 years now in various roles, and I think what really struck me about working at City of Wolverhampton Council is that we're really, really committed to growing our own. And I've had probably one of those really squiggly careers that we've talked about a lot, Michelle. So I started as a social worker and I moved into various different services in the council, public health, and then I moved into more of the corporate sort of side. And I suppose it's because my passion is people, and I really want to see people develop and succeed and get the best out of themselves. So I think it's a pleasure to work for City of Wolverhampton Council, where that absolute commitment is around growing our own.
Brilliant. So you literally live and breathe everything we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to get into, I suppose, a bit about talent management, a little bit about leadership development, and ultimately around succession planning. And you at your council, we're working really close with you on your new Our Future Leaders programme. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think this came about, again, sort of as our real commitment to growing our own. And since I've been in post, and I think what we've recognised is that there is a bit of a gap in our sort of talent planning and talent pipeline. We've got some amazing talented people in the organisation. We offer some of those more theoretical management and leadership courses. But actually, the gap really is that people are missing that experience. They're not getting that opportunity to try before you buy. And we've got a lot of managers who are stepping into management and leadership positions with that theory, but not necessarily that experience. And I think that's where we wanted to get to, really, is we wanted to give some of our hidden leaders and managers that opportunity to step into those roles for a temporary period of time, but have that safe and supportive environment to gather those skills, that experience, that exposure to some of that stuff that us leaders, we have to sort of deal with on a day-to-day basis.
So on a practical level, I know this stuff. Yeah. And it's all brand new, isn't it? It's all going on live as we speak. Tell us a little bit about what the Our Future Leaders programme looks like. You've got a new team, haven't you? Give us a sense of what it's going to feel like for them.
So we've recruited a Future Leaders manager. So again, this manager will have all that wraparound support that we're working very closely with yourselves on, also from the council as well. And their role is really to help shape the programme in that sort of more detail, working in partnership with yourselves. And then we've recruited 4 Future Leaders officers who will be starting with us in the next couple of weeks. And they'll be deployed into various different areas in the council to have that exposure, that safe and supportive environment to try being a manager. So, and that could be anything from people management, budget management, but also having that real sort of wraparound support. So they're encouraged to really sort of try, but also fail in a safe way, and again, have that real support to achieve what they want to achieve. So we've got our Future Leaders officers, the 4 of them who are just about to start with us. One of the things one of them said to me was, well, I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to manage people. I won't be able to, I'm not a leader. So when we went through the whole sort of recruitment process and we talked about the different ways in reflecting about leadership and management, but also what they wanted to get out of it, I think it helped already build their confidence that they know that they can do this. And that's what it's about. It's about giving them the opportunity, but also helping them see that they've got it. And we've got such a lot of that hidden talent in the organisation. So a programme like this is about exposing some of that and helping us bring some of those aspiring leaders through.
So starting with the talent management bit then. Yeah. So you've gone across the organisation and said, we're looking for talent, which in itself is an interesting term, isn't it? People all interpret it very differently. We're looking for potential. Tell us a little bit, because you've adopted a really creative approach to the whole programme, haven't you? And it's learning through every step that you're going through. People take something away, no matter what encounter they've had with the programme. Tell us a little bit about the recruitment process and how you've identified that potential and talent across the organisation.
So it really started from sort of the absolute start, and it was all about sort of the comms we put out. So we were really clear about some of the terminology we used. This was about potential. We didn't expect people who applied to the programme to have anything more than an aspiration and an ambition. Obviously, we wanted to look at people who were going to succeed, and also whether it was the right time for them in their journey. So as part of the recruitment process, we asked them to tell us about what makes them our future leader and what really inspires them to want to commit to our organisation and be part of that growing our own sort of movement we've got, really. And then when we we had a huge amount of applicants, probably more than we've had for a very many sort of internal recruitment campaigns. So it was a really sort of positive message out to the organisation that we've also listened and people are responding to that. And that really shone through in how we promoted the opportunities through all of our networks. And again, we used a lot of our employee networks to help us design what the programme looked like. And then I think we wanted to take a really creative approach to how we recruited the 4 positions we had. So again, I suppose we probably put them through their paces, but in a really positive way. And we had a whole day where they were working in groups, tackling a local authority challenge. They had to present to a panel and come up with an idea of how we could make the council more efficient or something that would benefit us in terms of how we operate. And then we finished with a reflective interview, so really starting to get to know who they were, what they were about, what their values and morals were that they were going to bring to these roles. So it wasn't a straightforward interview process. It was layers of, how do we know these people? Who are they? What are they going to bring? And are they going to give us that confidence? And how can we bring them on that journey to develop their potential? So I think we started with about 35 applicants, and we whittled them down to 4. But actually the people who didn't get through, they're still being supported. And one of the great things that was offered by yourselves was around that access to the coaching pool. So all of those unsuccessful, they're not unsuccessful, they're just not at the right time. They have access to coaching, they have access to that development pathway and plan with us, so that we don't lose them. They're still part of our talent pipeline. And
you were really looking throughout that recruitment process, weren't you, at how they presented, how they conversed with you, the sorts of things, the way in which they navigated the room, the conversations they were having, rather than necessarily what they were saying, because that's the stuff that can be learned. But you got active engagement, hadn't you, from your senior team as well? They were part of the process. It's been a very visible senior leader supported programme. So tell us a little bit about how did you get that buy-in? Because you've made a significant investment in this programme. This isn't just about taking some people and giving them some training. You're also supporting the services where they've moved from. And we know that's a massive challenge in local government right now. So talk us through, how did you get from concept to investment?
I think, to be honest, we're really lucky as an organisation. Our senior leadership team are absolutely people-focused, and they recognise, and it's not just a saying, that our people are our greatest asset. And as an organisation, we're never going to achieve without investing in our people. And I think that obviously by identifying that gap where we've got people who are stepping up but not necessarily with the experience or in that safe environment, it was probably quite easy to sort of, get that buy-in, because they saw it, they're living, they're breathing it in their services, in their even in our sort of senior leadership sort of team. We know there's gaps where people want to step up but don't necessarily have that experience or, you know, that confidence, and that's at all levels of the organisation. So I think we're really, really fortunate that certainly our chief executive and our senior leadership team are absolutely bought into the fact we've got to invest, because we've got to develop our leaders of the future. They're going to be the ones that are going to be overtaking us, and that's how we should be looking at it, is that we're not trying to keep people down. We want people to do well, and we want people, you know, to go above us as leaders, and that, I think, is the mantra of our organisation. And I think it wasn't then such a hard sell, because they already believed it and knew it. And the investment then is about, you know, as you said, the service areas where we're backfilling and bringing those managers on that journey to be able to release those staff members into the programme, which again was a little bit of a challenge. But again, once you have those conversations and you talk that through, we were able to sort of, you know, we're giving them some investment back, because we're not saying we're taking a staff member away from you. We're still allowing you to run your service, but we want to make sure we give people this opportunity.
Yeah, really special that backfilling. That's something special and unique about this programme, isn't it? And I think there's just a natural growth there, that what you're saying is we're going to move this bit of talent, retain them in the council, not just the service, and give an opportunity to somebody else to move into that service. So there's that natural growth pattern. Before we get into the sorts of things that we are doing to support those people through their journey, if you like, on the programme, this isn't just a development programme. There's going to be a big spotlight on them. In fairness, they're going to be accountable and expected to deliver some things. So give me a sense of that. This is where it blends really between just learning and learning through experience. Talk me through the transformation aspect of the programme.
So, I mean, I think what we've really tried to do is, you know, we've got some really high priority pieces of work in the council. We're really ambitious. We want to, you know, be as high performing as we can. We want to deliver for our residents and communities. So the transformation really is about those officers going into those spaces and being put into those scenarios, but supportive and safely. They are going to step into those leadership roles. They are going to have to lead pieces of work. They are going to have to lead people. So again, that's the whole sort of transformation part really, is we're not saying to them, you've just got to get this done from day one. It's more about how do we take them on that journey and understand that it might take them 6 months to get to a point where we might have expected them to get to at month one, but that's okay. That's the transformation. We're transforming how people are learning, developing, but also performing in those environments. And that takes not just support from my service or, you know, from us. It's the services they're deployed into as well. So the transformation is that actually they're having to change how they work as well, because the expectations can't just be they hit the ground running. It's about how do we support them through that journey. So the transformation will be around a whole sort of culture shift in our managers, our leaders, in terms of this is how we grow people.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're basically going to be helicoptering them in to different situations where probably you've got transformation activities that might fall down the gaps, or you've not been able to put the capacity to them because they're not priority, but they could make some significant shifts if you could get round to them. So this team are going to be moved around the council and will enable services to start shifting the dial on some of the areas where they could improve things within those specific services. So it's not just about your new team, it is about those services as well. So the team itself, another interesting part of this programme is they sit with you, don't they, Jo? They sit within your team and they're being hosted by and supported by the people team. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my service has really sort of grown over the last, I would say the last 12 months. And I think we've moved away from sort of, you know, that more traditional organisational development to being more around experience? How do people experience being in the organisation? And again, within that is about that transformation, about people transformation. And I think that's something that we've tried to really embed within my service, is that we're not just, we're not just about training, we're about transforming how you work in the council and your experience of being an employee in our organisation. So having this team hosted in my service makes a lot of sense, because we are starting to be more around people transformation, and this is about people and transforming our services, transforming how the organisation works. And I think, again, having them hosted in my service as well gives them, again, more of that wraparound support from my service. Obviously, development opportunities, all of that, they are linked really closely into. So again, it's almost like we're bombarding them with all of this support because we want it to succeed. And yes, it's intensive, and yes, it's going to be an experience for them, but actually they should come out of this going, that was amazing.
Yeah.
This is what support I should have from an organisation if I want to grow.
Yeah. So you started by talking about some of that succession need. You know you're going to have some gaps in the senior leadership in the future, and you want to be able to move people into that. We've talked a little bit about the talent and finding that talent and genuinely focusing on potential and structuring the recruitment process that enables that potential to be spotted and not default into finding experience. So let's talk a little bit about the third chunk, which is the leadership development bit. So they're going to be doing, but like you said, there's going to be quite a lot of intensive support wrapped around them. Give us a little bit of a flavour of what that might look like.
So obviously we've got our Future Leaders Manager. So again, that's a real critical role. So she'll be on hand to obviously provide that more one-to-one, day-to-day support. But ultimately, they're going to have support from the organisation. So we've identified that each of them will have a senior leader as a mentor. Obviously, a lot of the work we're doing with yourself around, bringing in some of that more leadership development focus through the sessions and the mini labs, but also having that coaching as well. Again, we need to give them that space to reflect on what they've been delivering and what they've been and the activity that they're involved in. And also we want to give them exposure. So things like for us, we obviously work in a political space. So there's things like cabinet members, briefings, there's, full council. They will never have had any exposure to any of that. So it's understanding how the organisation operates, again, is part of that, supporting them to navigate all the different leadership spaces that they'll have to in the future.
And you've deliberately thought about two things in that development space. You've thought about coaching for them, not only as individuals, but them as, I'm going to say group to start with, because they are just a group of individuals at the moment, but you want to get them into a space where they feel like a team, regardless of where they are helicoptered to. So you've thought about that. You've also thought about the kind of leadership development activities, the interventions, very much about future-proofing. So thinking about skills that they will need, not necessarily replicating leadership and management skills that already exist in the organisation, helping them to think differently, and by default, hopefully spreading some of that new way of thinking, new way of doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, why we wanted to, focus on that coaching element, but focus on them coming together as a team, because they'll all be deployed into different areas. We're basically, aren't we, a local authority made up of lots of mini businesses. So one person's experience is going to be a lot different to another person's, and it's how do we capture that learning and also showcase that to the organisation. So this isn't just about, they go on this programme and at the end they drop off a cliff. It's about what's next after that end point. And how do we, feed that back to our senior leadership team? How do we have those touch points throughout the whole sort of process that keeps that visibility, but also helps us as an organisation learn from, how do we tweak this? How do we need to do this again if we're going to do it again? Because we're learning as we go along. This is new to us. We've only ever done sort of, that more, as I said, theoretical management and leadership development. This is an opportunity for us to really sort of review and change and adapt and learn as we go along. And I think that's the beauty of something like this, is that we're not actually wedded to, oh, we've got to do this here, there's a session here, you must attend this. It's more fluid, and it's more able for us to be more ambitious with it as well.
And you're genuinely learning. So you just talked about the organisation learning as you go. Our future leaders manager is learning at the same time as the team she's supporting are learning, all at the same time as doing and actually delivering some things. So have you had any surprises along the way already? Are there things you've started thinking, oh, if we did that differently? Have you got any early headlines?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the challenge around releasing members of staff, I think, again, the backfill element helped with that. But again, I think there's something about, for us as an organisation and our managers, being able to support our staff to go on to have those opportunities. And I think, again, that's something that we learned very early on, is that we need to have those initial conversations with managers early on to get them to really think about, because we do have a process in place where if an employee wants to apply for an opportunity like this, they would need to have their approval from their manager. And again, it's how do we work with those managers to see that as an opportunity and not as a hindrance to their service.
Yeah. So for others who may be thinking, how do we do something differently in the leadership development space linked to issues they know they will have at some point to do with succession, what are some of the early things you might give them in terms of being brave or not underestimating? What would be your sort of top tips?
Definitely, it's about, that business case, and it's about, getting your senior leadership team engaged and really sort of bought into that. And I think, as I said, I'm really lucky that we've got a leadership team that absolutely is on board with this, supportive, sees it, wants it to be the success it is, and our approach to talent pipeline. I think it is about being brave. It's about, it is an investment. It's not something you can do for free. And I think that's something, again, is you've got to be brave with that, and you've got to say, actually, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, but we're going to do everything we can to make it a success at the same time. And that's from all parts of the organisation. And I think that for me is probably the top tip, is it can't just be something that sits in like organisational development or in one particular area. It's got to be a whole one council approach. So I think, as I said, the challenge, again, we are on a bit of a cultural journey, and it's about bringing our managers and our leaders along with us and helping them see that opportunity for our people, and maybe not putting so many of those barriers in the way of that. Because I think if we don't address some of those challenges, we are just creating a workforce that is pushed down as opposed to being able to grow up.
And have you got any thoughts already on how you might keep this cohort warm once they finish? It's a 12-month programme, isn't it, Jo? You got any early thoughts on what you might do with them afterwards? They're not all going to walk straight into a lovely leadership position, but any early thoughts on what you might do to keep them all warm and energised?
I mean, I think, as I said, this is a programme where we don't want them to fall off a cliff at the end. And we recognise that there are going to potentially be maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, whoever, they might not get a role they want at the end. And it's about how do we support them to go back into those services, take back some of that learning into those services that they have their substantive roles in, but also making sure they have that, development plan that's ongoing, that regular touch points, again, sort of that senior leadership mentoring, that shouldn't stop. But again, it's all of those wraparound things that we've had in an intensive 12-month period that don't just stop. If anything, we build on those. And again, they are a team, and it's about, again, bringing them back together, almost like that alumni approach, isn't it? It's like, how do we continue to feed them with that support and that opportunity. And I mean, we are exploring things around how we can sort of promote roles and, you know, give them some opportunities at the end or as they come towards the end. So again, it's really sort of exploring how can we be brave at the end? How can we, you know, this is a programme, but where's our braveness at the end in terms of supporting them to get into those roles?
We don't want them going after all this hard work.
Exactly. So, and I think that's it, is that if we create something that is that impactful, and I mean, I think about it now, is like, if I had an opportunity like that before I was, you know, in a head of service role, or, you know, if I had an opportunity to try in that safe and supportive environment, how brilliant would that be? And how valued would I feel by an organisation that did that for me? So, and I think that's what we want to bring to our people, is that we value you and we're going to give you these opportunities. And there's almost a bit of a contract back then, is that we want you to commit to us and continue to be that great leader in our organisation.
And this is definitely the early signs of that for people. I think people have started to see and feel that now, especially with the interest you had in these vacancies. And I guess the next 3 to 6 months are going to be really interesting. They're going to be the truth teller for you, aren't you? You're going to get a real sense of, you know, how this is going to land, whether actually you're going to be able to deliver any really meaningful messages to your senior leadership team. I mean, it's fantastic. They're so supportive, but they're also going to want to see something, aren't they? And I know we talk a lot, and we will continue to talk a lot and support you, because we're really excited about this piece of work for you. Have you found it useful sort of working in partnership as opposed to sort of just getting something off the shelf? That we've really bespoke this, haven't we?
Honestly, Michelle, I think if we hadn't have had your support and your partnership working, and we could, you know, buy a programme off the shelf. We don't want to do that. And I think that's the braveness in it as well, is that we want to work in partnership with you. I think what you've brought to us so far has been absolutely transformational, and I don't think we would be where we are without that partnership working. And I think that's, again, the strength of something like this, is that we're not reliant on, you know, we'll just buy that programme for 6 months and you'll go on it once a week and we'll assess it at the end. This is about, how do we make this a real impactful, fluid, flexible programme that's tailored to individuals, as opposed to like that mass training programs that we tend to access a lot of the time. And I think that's where hopefully our relationship is that positive, because we've managed to sort of change the game on some of that, is that we've moved, even in our organisation, again, away from that more traditional training offer to, let's be transformational, let's try something that could ultimately change the way our whole organisation grows our people. So I think without your sort of input and support, Michelle, and WME's support, I don't think we probably would be where we are. So, and again, that's a big credit to yourself.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Jo. Thank you so much for joining us today and travelling over from Wolverhampton, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you all for joining us on today's podcast.